Greetings, everyone, and once again, Happy New Year. This is Rock Roll Spot coming to you with the weekly comic book roundup, and now we're moving on to this week's X-Men books, Spider-Man book, and a couple others. So I'm going to start things off with X-Men number 4, which was actually supposed to come out, I want to say, 2 weeks ago, but was slightly delayed. Which may have been 3 weeks ago now that I think about it, but either way, it was slightly delayed, and basically Marvel put a thing out early on saying, "Hey, X-Men number 4 is going to be a little delayed, so the new shipping schedule for from 4 onward is so yeah." Anywho, so things begin in Davos, Switzerland. At the World Economic Forum, and a delegation from Krakoa has been invited. We quickly see that the delegation consists of Apocalypse, Professor X, and Magneto, as well as two personal security guards, Cyclops, and the Gorgon. So everyone's met with, and dinner has been prepared for the 3 delegates while the security operatives stay behind. Dinner, it turns out, is watermelon gazpacho infused with habanero and poblano chilies, shredded kale, mushrooms, bacon, and parmesan, olive wagyu with from Kagawa Prefecture with Colbert sauce, and a brioche tres de Metz. Also present are, from Krakoa, of course, Xavier, Magneto, and Apocalypse. From political representatives, Hodari, a Wakandan attaché, Ma Mingyu, a Chinese ambassador, and Riley Marshall, U.S. ambassador, are present. And there's also an academic guest from Brazil, Frederico Joao de Cesar. I believe that's what I'm pronouncing it correct. I could be butchered that terribly. Business guests from Italy, Switzerland, and India, Daniela Gentile, Ludovic von Bergen, and Banhi Galot. From listed from Gentile from Italy, von Bergen from Switzerland, and Galot from India. So they hobnob a bit. They Apocalypse is kind of the odd one out, basically kind of saying, he's asked, how should I refer to you? How should we refer to you? And Saba, Mr. Nur, and he says, I'm Apocalypse. Adding that his other names are not fit for everyone else to utter. However, during the dinner, Xavier catches a bit of information. There is a pair of assault teams waiting to converge on the dinner's position from the floors above and below. So, during dinner, where Magneto kind of just lays out how things are. It is mentioned that you don't allow outsiders on your island, so how do you expect the world to trust you when you hide there? Apocalypse says, "Does we're hiding?" Some statements were made about Krakoan drugs. Perhaps from the research being done on them, maybe the weekly regiments aren't necessary. And while Cyclops dispatches one assault team, the rest continue on. And the conversation continues, including the fact that there is a gap in history between the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Dark Ages. No one really knows what caused the end of the Bronze Age. Basic, going on. It's part of a point Maggie is making that every few thousand years, humanity destroys tends to destroy itself. For, and it turns out what caused the end of the Bronze Age, well, was apocalypse. And it's explained that they've got a new way of, they're going to do things a bit differently. And might even acknowledges his old methods. How in the past he would have seized the country's weapons of war and turned them on the country itself. And basically, he lays out their plan, and the assembled diplomats are not too happy to hear it. There's also a write up on the Krakoan captains, and explaining that each one or, has a sphere of influence. Cyclops, for example, is over the X-Men. Magic, Guard is the Sextants, where all of the students, where basically the student habitats are. Bishop is over Hellfire Trading. Gorgon, however, is basically chief guard of the council, and it is pretty much a given that any member of the Autumn Council plans to enter a potentially hostile environment, Gorgon will be accompanying them, especially in light of the recent assassination of Charles Xavier. Turns out, however, the Gorgon has not killed any of the operatives he took on. Maimed, dismembered, yeah. Killed, no. And the American delegate continued, then called out for the two assault teams. Claiming that they can't trust mutants. And saying, how long do you think until someone blinks and this peaceful Deton disappears? To which Xavier responds, a month. But it was one month was all it took for someone to be sent to Krakoa to kill him. And we once again see Charles without his Cerebro helmet on. And he explains that he hasn't completely given up on his dream of mutants and humans coexisting peacefully. And there will always be part of him who believes in that dream and believes in humanity. However, it only took 1 month before humanity tried to kill him. And they were going to try again, and they were about to try again. And so he asked, well, you admitted to everyone here that you see the world as yours. What do you think we should do? So he says, learn a lesson, evolve, adapt, become something more. And this is the last time that, attempts to lash out against mutants end peacefully. And now the mutant kind is part of a brotherhood of nations. Well, they do have a learning curve, but they've got good teachers in the existing nations of the world. And so the Krakoan delegation departs Davos. And that's where the issue ends. I have to admit, I was slightly surprised. I think I expected more of more involvement within within everything. So, next up, we've got Marauders number 5. Where we'd left off, Bishop had managed to solve the mystery of the missing Thai businessman, and it turns out it was his bigoted wife who had hidden him away in a safe room, claiming that he had disappeared just from touching one of the Krakoan gates. The wife has since been socially ruined and run off to find solace from former leader of the Hellfire Club, Cade Kilgore, who is based now out of Madripoor. So the issue begins in the Arctic. A sub surfaces in the ice, and on it we've got Christian Frost and Iceman. And Iceman does his part to help with preventing the melting of the polar ice caps, namely icing up and, sending some ice its way. And apparently, Christian has offered Bobby a place on the crew of the Mercury. However, Iceman has other responsibilities. Though Christian asks if he truly loves being on the Marauder, or is he just worried that Shadowcat will die out there, the resurrection protocols will fail her. Back at Hellfire Bay, meeting of what exists currently of the Hellfire Club comes to order. Shaw suggests that the Marauder go to Madripoor in place of Black Bishop's ship. However, a vote goes in favor of things going as initially planned. When Shaw leaves, his son, Shinobi, promptly states that he thought he drove his father nuts, but apparently he has nothing on Emma and Kate. Also, Kate gets the mental download of Krakoan. And Kate has a similar thought about the resurrection protocols. If the gates aren't working for her, will that work? Will that not work either? And it's kind of nice seeing Emma and Kate as actual allies, not just allies because they have a not just allies by chance, but rather allies by choice. Well, it turns out, however, that Shinobi Shaw's boat has gotten into some trouble in Madripoor Bay. And the name of the boat is, of course, the Upstart, which not exactly Kate's too fond about, or Emma's too fond about. Storm and Bishop go head to Madripoor for the gates, while it does seem, however, that Sebastian Shaw has a plan as well. And we've got another report from the X desk, which I'll get to at the end of the issue, after going to what happens in the issue. Bishop, in Madripoor, discovers that the streets are filled with angry men, and suggests that maybe a change in the weather will send some home. One of the young residents of Madripoor explains to Bishop that to get in on the current contract, you have to kill a mutant and bring them to Verendi. And then Verendi makes them rich. And so Bishop then pays the young man to go home instead, however. And apparently they've got the Upstart fairly surrounded. Bishop and Storm get aboard, and there's a hold full of mutants who then ask how Bishop and Storm handled the power dampening gear. And it turns out someone's gotten a hold of those Russian power dampening armors from the first couple issues of Marauders. Bishop and Storm take on the guards, while members of Homeless Verendi watch, namely Wilhelmina Kensington, the White Queen, Manuel and Duke, the White King, and presumably Black Bishop Maximilian Frankenstein. So the Marauder is on its way, and Kate phases through another vessel, but doing so is enabled for a boarding party consisting of someone at least using the name the Hate Monger, and the Executioner. So from the X desk, another person returned from the dead this week. This time it was my mom. My sister administered the Krakoan medicine of the mind to our mother without my knowledge. She was afraid I would say no. My mom had been in poor health for roughly 4 years and hasn't remembered me for the last 2. So you can imagine my shock when she walked up to my door and knocked. I canceled her mobile service last year. She was already supposed to have died. I'll be taking some vacation time in the coming days to spend with the family. I'm not compromised by my mom's recovery, but that is probably not for me to decide. Let me know if I should clear out the desk. There are, however, two pressing drug purchases to discuss. Manuel and Duke made two large purchases in the last several days. He bought a large supply of Krakoa medicine from the black market, spending 10 figures in heated bidding for an entire pallet of the mutant drugs that seem to have fallen off the back of a boat. I also have very strong reason to believe that he also purchased cyanide through an associate named Cade Kilgore and a shell corp out of Madripoor called Hominus Verendi. I have no info on the corporation, but I consulted with our man at Princeton, Michael D. Gordon, who looped in Yelena Baraz from her linguistics department to translate that company into English for me. There are a few possibilities, but the one that's most ominous and therefore likely is man must be revered and feared. These subjects do not have full profiles, as they are both minors. They do not possess any inherent powers if you don't count their billions. Both subjects have held position with the Hellfire Club in the past, and that is likely the motivation for their purchases this week. It's my urgent recommendation that we immediately reach out to friendly Krakoans and alert them to the likelihood that a mass casualty event is being planned around their only meaningful export. If need be, I know someone who knows someone. Let's assume we're on a clock to save some old human lives. Both purchases were cash and carry. We detected the poison purchased through FinCEN, and the Krakoan medicine auction was recorded by a hot mic exploit by a Five Eyes nation to be named never. I'm working from home for the next few days, so let me know how you proceed. There's also a brief write-up on Hominus Verendi, giving us the White Court as it currently stands, Wilhelmina Kensington White Queen, Manuela Duke Black King, and White Bishop Chen Zhao. Then we've got Black King Cade Kilgore and Black Bishop Maximilian Frankenstein. And then both White and Black Knight titles are currently vacant. That's where the issue ends. It's just kind of nice to see the Executioner back again. Though a recent conversation of sorts on Twitter kind of, that as much as he's a villain I do enjoy, the best story he's been in was his first appearance. The best story with him is his first appearance. The second best is a really good single issue, but it's not good because of him. He's not a detriment to the story. It's just that yeah. Still, though, it is nice to occasionally see the character pop up. Anywho, moving on to Miles Morales' Spider-Man number 14. Where we left off, Miles had helped his Uncle Aaron get across town to avoid a price on his head. And this was around the same time that his sister was being born. And so, afterwards, Aaron and Miles went to the hospital to go see how Miles' mom was, and they all got to meet Miles' sister. However, the only reason that Uncle Aaron wasn't killed on the spot is because he agreed to work for none other than Ultimatum. And so we begin with Miles looking in on his sister, and, well, apparently today is the day that his mom's going to teach him how to change diapers. And so he continues. He's still trying to track down Goblin, the drug being peddled by Ultimatum. Turns out, though, every time he goes after a group before anyone can show up, the crew destroys their stash, and only recently has he managed to discover their main re-up spot, a local cemetery. And so he gets a sample. He doesn't actually get a sample, but he also webs up the the thugs and informs the police. Though it turns out that's probably not going to do any good because, well, he basically just called the kingpin to say, hey, a bunch of drug dealers are webbed up somewhere. So back at school, he's running a bit late. He touches base with his roommate, Gang. They haven't seen each other in a few years, even though they're in the same room. Over lunch, turns out Mr. Samita is recommending Miles for a writing scholarship. And Miles realizes a slight problem. He can't find his journal. So he goes all over town looking for it. Gets back just in time. Ends up having a fight at the cemetery with the ultimate Green Goblin. He manages to get away. And the goblins were remanded in custody. Returns to school just in time to just ahead of time for his meeting with the dean about his attendance. However, it turns out the dean has his journal and claims to know exactly why Miles has such a problem with his attendance. And that's where the issue ends. Next up, we've got Punisher Soviet number 3. Where we left off here, Frank Castle's newest ally, Valery Spanovich, was beginning to started telling Frank about his background, namely his time spent serving in Afghanistan. We start off, he's still going on about it. He's still going into what happened to him in Afghanistan. Explaining it was a Mujahideen tactic of capturing, blinding, and dismembering Russian soldiers and leaving them by the side of roads. Presumably, they were referred to as being puppets. They took our guys, they turned them into puppets. And they lie by the side of the road, bloody tourniquets on the stumps of their limbs, asking to be killed. And there was later on another the tank refusion was attacked, and the airborne squad that was coming in as well. And Stepanovich was the last man standing. He was stuck to a tree through his hands with a knife. And when he came to, his squad mates, while he was unconscious, were skinned in front of him. And that's what he basically regained conscious to, was their skinned bodies. And eventually, they left Afghanistan, and then the Soviet Union fell. And he put kind of a life together. Married a good woman who somehow put up with him. Had two good kids. He was out of the army on a medical discharge. So he drank and he drank because he wanted to be somewhere else with people he would never see again. And for a while he kept drinking away from his family. Then one day, while reading the paper, he sees the old base commander, now with a beard, and apparently now a Russian mobster. And apparently the word is that that old base commander, that's who sold out God, I'm terrible with it. Stepanovich's squad to the Mujahideen's. And that's where the issue ends. Alright, now on to our last book of the week. Joker Harley, Criminal Sanity, number 2. Where we'd left off, Dr. Harleen Quinzel, a consultant with the GCPD, had started getting called on some interesting murders. And should be yet another interesting one. Similar to the Vitruvian Man. The victim's head wasn't crushed, but there were limbs restitched. Fat was melted down. And it's quite the mess. And so, Quinzel starts going through, making sure to figure out, okay, from the scene, what do I know about this killer? And okay, so and that also allows her to eliminate certain possible suspects. However, as Gotham does have quite a few people with their residents with a history of psychotic violence, she does call about some of them, including Victor Zsasz. Also turns out the young boy John Kelly, she asked about in the last issue, well, he was admitted to the ER 7 times as a minor, 2 concussions, a dislocated shoulder, and 3 broken bones. Then we get some backstory on that. John gets smacked around a bit by see him on Halloween night with a broken mask. We see him getting smacked around some more at home, then in a cast at school, then with a concussion in the hospital. At the ME's office, turns out there's a page missing from Mick Kelly's autopsy report. And then we get our first look at the Joker. He's ordered a few things. I'm sure the person he ordered them through can't get them for him as quickly as he'd like. Explain it's on back order, and because of as hard as that are to get, well, that just means they're more expensive now. And so Joker stabs the guy in the hand and suggests he reconsider his customer service approach. Then Harleen's brother suggests she go say goodbye. at least say goodbye to their mother, who's apparently dying. We had a fat flashback to 12 years previously when she was putting on lipstick one day and her mother scrubbed it off of her. Well, thinking about it pisses off Harley even more. Next, we've got John Kelly at Gotham High hacking into the social media page of a bully who torments him, and then publicly sharing various pictures from it. But then that night while he's shaving, he gets attacked. We get a brief shot of the Joker sitting at his workbench. And it seems like maybe they found one of the killers they're looking for, the park bench killer. But this is definitely not the Vitruvian killer. And the Joker finds a young woman walking in the park, takes her, and she comes to. She's got tape over her mouth, and she's tied to a chair. The Joker says to her that he can tell her that this isn't going to hurt, but that would be a lie. And that is where the issue ends. That is it for this week's roundup. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long, rock hard, and once again, have a happy new year.